Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. This episode is life-changing. This story that Jennifer Dickinson is going to share with you is her own personal story on how she was healed of stage 4 brain cancer. She has written the book, The Case for Hope, and this is a story that you will share, you will send to other people who are dealing with a cancer diagnosis right now. She incorporates mind, body, and spirit, and the things that she did to be cancer-free is just something that I just want to share with the world. Can't wait for you to listen in. Stay tuned. Hello, moms. Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer Bosma, wife, mom, grandma, former teacher for 23 years, and now a Christian children's book author and your podcast host. Are you a faith-based mom trying to live out a Christian life for your family? Do you want to learn more ways that you can have power over your child's spiritual growth? Inside this podcast, you will find tried and true ideas to grow in your faith and be the best wife and mom you can be. So listen in as you're cleaning up, doing the drive, or matching that sock, and be encouraged to know that God has his front parking spot set aside for you. Hello, and welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. Today, I have Jennifer Dickinson. She is an author, cancer survivor, and wellness advocate. Through her experience fighting brain cancer, she discovered many healing tools that she now shares with others. She is a graduate of the University of Rochester in New York and Emory Law School in Atlanta. She has been a transactional lawyer, managing partner, and public speaker regarding legal matters. Now, motivated by what she's learned through her healing journey, she speaks to others about healing, mindfulness, and spiritual growth. As a result of her own healing process, she became compelled to share the information she learned with as many people as possible. The Case for Hope, her new book, is an encouraging, easy-to-read, informative book filled with tools in support of those fighting cancer, illness, or those just looking to live a better life. Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I love how we met. We were at an author visit and in our local little town, and we met. And as soon as I met you, Jennifer, yes, we're the Jennifers, but as soon as I met, I'm like, your story. I mean, she had so many people at her table, and you were starting to tell me your story. Your story is incredible. I was like, Jennifer, you've got to be on the podcast. Share with the moms listening your story.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. So my story is that in 2011, I was starting to have some issues. I was a busy lawyer. I had 100 lawyers and staff in my firm, and I was just stressed out, basically. I didn't define it that way, but later, once I got sick, started to have issues. I started having trouble thinking about certain words. I started forgetting names or words. And then ultimately was diagnosed with brain cancer after about 4 or 6 months of trying to knock around with all of that. The doctors gave me no chance to live. I was 44 years old. I had a first grader and a third grader, and they basically said, you've got 12 to 18 months to live. Like, get your papers in order, go, put your list of all the things that you're going to do in your life. Do that now. Even though I was overwhelmed, I mean, the brain cancer, grade 4 glioblastoma is what I was diagnosed with, and it is the worst. 95% die within that time frame, 12 to 18 months. And then the people who don't die in that period of time, they usually die within 5 months. 5 years. So I'm 14 years clear. I take no medicine. So it's amazing. But the reason I believe that I'm here is multifaceted. But one of them, as simple as this, is I didn't buy it. I didn't buy that there was nothing that I could do. And I just started to just have hope. I'd say if one person out there has beaten this, then why can't I beat this too? And then the second thing, as a woman, as moms, you would appreciate this. I started to say, well, we heal all the time. I mean, the kids have they cut something or break something and we put a salve on it, or we just clean it and we put a bit and it heals, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, why can't I heal this? Right? Yeah. Like, I know it's really, really bad, but why Nan? And that opened I mean, it was just like a treasure trove of gifts. And one thing would lead to another, healing tools. I would learn something about the kinds of food that I was eating. I thought I was doing great, but when I looked at it, I really wasn't. I wasn't eating that great. And so mind, body, spirit, the tools coming to me one after another very naturally. And I felt like I was doing great. I mean, I felt like my mind was getting in the right place. I mean, how do you deal with brain cancer that they're saying you don't even have a year, to
Yeah.
live? And so that was the biggest thing, is by taking control of my own life and not listening just with the doctors. I appreciate the doctors, I do, but they don't have the whole piece of the pie.
Mhm.
They're a slice of the pie. Ain't the whole thing though. And that
Right.
is a
Right.
very, very important thing. I've had so many people say the whole pie is the doctor's medical care, and then it's the mind, it is the body, and it is the spirit. And these are very critical pieces. That's pretty much what happened. And I just kept moving forward and learning new things. And like I said, it was almost like it came to me organically. There was no book. I was looking for books about that. Nothing was out there. I just knew. And I started putting all this stuff. After 3 months, I realized I had about 22 tools I was using on a consistent basis. I'm like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm doing it. And at 12 months, I was like, this is not going to come back to me, because the doctors kept saying, well, you might be doing fine now, but it's going to come back. And
Right.
honestly,
Right.
that does happen with this dynamic. But there are two things that I learned that were so simple that nobody ever told me. I mean, as far as the doctor and medical care, one is that cancer thrives on sugar, right? And I learned that very, very early. And I was like, oh, okay, so I avoid sugar. And then the second thing is cancer cannot thrive in an alkaline environment. So alkaline is going to be your greens or your green drinks or your more vegetables and things like that. Acidic food, cancer thrives in it. So just like these are little things that I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know how to meditate. Oh, I didn't know how breathing techniques are used. Oh, I didn't know that spending time in nature actually after 20 minutes calms our nervous system, reduces inflammation. It does all these amazing things. We create hormones from our own bodies. And then obviously my favorite part was discovering God through this process, which I didn't have formal schooling with respect to learning God, but I discovered it in the most unbelievable way, and it's such a blessing to me. So that's basically what happened.
I am just sitting here still amazed. I love it. I love, because you know what? We have a master physician. He's made us and he can heal us. And like you said, it is like a collaborative. You've got the doctors and they're going to tell you the bad stuff. I mean, they're reading your reports. That's all they have. But
Yeah.
the way that you took it, by like stopping sugar, I've heard that before just
Yeah.
recently. And then, so alkalinity, is that when you had the greens, you brought more greens in, you had green,
Yes.
like, okay, so those were your two biggest like dietary changes?
Yeah. And there's a thing that you can do. I started to learn these are like these little pH strips, and you
Okay.
can buy them and you can put it on your tongue or through your urine, and you can see based on what you're eating if you're having more alkaline or more acidic food just by this $8. This is $8. All the tools that I learned most of it was free, but I've studied each one, and they've all been studied a million times over. But just like this little tool I'm telling you, it blew my mind. And after about 3 years of being well for myself and really getting a hang of making the changes I need to make, I started to coach other people, and people knew, oh my God, Jennifer's still alive, right? Like,
Right.
wow. And they would refer other people. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I realized this is a bigger story. People really need this information. And that's why I wrote the book.
Wow. Now, your doctors that were the ones diagnosing you, have they embraced you? Have they embraced, like, tell us more? Or they're like, oh, talk to the hand. It's not medical right
It's
now.
so frustrating. I mean, I have given my book to my oncologist and I love him. He's such a great guy. I really like him. He's not even read my book, right? Which is kind of an insult. It's
Right.
sort of but I've gotten to the point. I used to be angry at the doctors and I had to rewrite some parts of the book because my dad's like, you sound a little angry. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of am a little
Yeah,
angry.
right.
What if somebody had told me this at the anybody who gets sick,
Mhm.
if they're not taught how to eat the right kinds of food, give them a one-page paper, and fill out. That's what I used to do. I was giving my people one pager. There's just no reason. The information is absolutely out there. Why is it for somebody they're telling me you're going to die in 12 months? Why was it for me to try to figure out all the pieces? But God blessed me and allowed me to keep learning and applying these things. And people would say, a lot of times the doctors would say, you're lucky. I'm like, no,
Right.
I'm not
Right.
lucky. I took massive changes in my life. I applied it to myself and I believed, and I had the love of God with me, which was a big boost. I mean, through your whole physical body, when you allow yourself to engage to God, your physical body again reduces inflammation and all of these other wonderful things. We create hormones just by talking about God and thinking about God. So anyway, so that's part of the journey.
Wow. No, I mean, I am just because my brother is fighting cancer right now, and I've heard the sugar part with him. And, I've heard the sugar, and I love like so green vegetables that you want alkalinity. So you want alkalinity and no sugar, correct?
You want no sugar or
Okay.
no processed sugar.
Right.
We have to have some sugars in our
Right.
life, like an apple or something.
Sure.
The problem, the junky stuff is devoid of any benefits, right? It's
Right.
just a sugar boost and it's going to create inflammation. You're going to zoom up and then you're going to crash. You don't
Right.
want inflammation when you're dealing with cancer. What you want is very calm and steady. So if you want to have an apple or things like that, but it's got to be in a balanced rate, but
Mhm.
there's no reason to eat junky food. And here's the thing, when you feel sick, a lot of times you're inclined to eat the kind of junky food. Like I feel so bad for myself. I want an ice cream tonight. No, worst
Right.
thing possible, right? So
Mhm.
it's not really that complicated once you figure it out, but it still blows my mind that every single person who's not diagnosed with any kind of illness, cancer, doesn't have a simple path. Like this is how you can get to the other side of this. I talked to a brain cancer guy and he could not get the surgery because it was entwined in many places. He
Right.
had glioblastoma just like mine was. But I had surgery and chemo and radiation. But he's like, I have no chance here. And I said, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I gave him all the tools, the mind, the body. Showed him all the different things that we can use. And there's so many.
Right.
And he did it. He did it all. He did the clean food. He took care of his sleep. He changed everything in his life. He shifted, moved, whatever, all of the things. And, he's 8 years clear with no glioblastoma, with no surgery, a week of chemotherapy, and he's alive, right?
Wow.
So he is an amazing story, but he took it seriously. He said, oh my God, I guess I need to change my life. The alternative is I had a young boy, he was 12 years old. He went to school with my daughter,
Mhm.
and I felt like a goof, but he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, brain cancer.
Wow.
What I learned, by the way, applies to all cancers or illnesses, right?
Okay. Yeah. It's not just brain cancer.
No, it's everybody. It's your body system
Mhm.
and how it works together. But this boy, he had diagnosed. I called the mom and I said, you don't know me, but your son is in school with my daughter, and I had the same thing. I'd love to share with you what I do. And she said, well, we're going to listen to what the doctors say. And then if that doesn't work, right? You see where that's going.
Oh, yeah.
If that doesn't work, we'll come back to that. Okay, right. And I'm like, oh man, you got to pounce on this. Like
Right.
you don't have
Can't
time
wait.
to wait.
Right.
No,
No.
because it's a battle. It's a
Right.
battle in your body and you got to get on it fast. And so obviously she's like, oh, I would follow up once in a while. Oh, he's doing great. And then of course it starts to get bad again. And now it's worse. And now he can't see. And he's 12. He's 12
Oh,
years old.
goodness. Yes.
And so then the mom is like, oh, well, tell me about your stools. I'm like, oh God, like I'll tell you, but
Right.
that was not. So and I don't, and ultimately he did pass, right? So it's very
Wow.
scary. All of this is so scary, but there are so many things that we can do, anybody can do.
Okay.
And that's what inspires me and sharing my story.
Well, I'm as you're talking, I am going to be ordering your book and sending it to my brother, and he will have it for Christmas. But
Yes.
before we go there, I want to talk about your faith because your mind, body, and spirit. So we've got you mind and getting out and exercising. And Dr. Mark Hyman, I follow him on Instagram. He is amazing. He is
Yes.
all holistic.
Yes.
It's talking about the first like 5 minutes of the day or 30 minutes, get outside, get that vitamin D. And he has so many great like holistic health things that go parallel with this perfectly. But your faith, the spiritual, because we've had a lot of miracles and the hand of God in our family with my brother who is actually fighting cancer right now, but in general, just the miracles and the hand of God. Tell us like your faith before, maybe things that changed it during and how it is now. Tell us
Oh,
a bit about that, Jennifer.
oh, that was one of my favorite topics about my learning process. I was the third of a family. And by the time I was the baby, obviously, my parents got sick of the Catholic Church. And so I didn't grow up with anything. They were angry about the church and I kind of got it. I understand what some of their problems were, but I never really got any of this. So I was one of those people who said, oh, I believe in the universe, but I never felt comfortable about God. And I was sort of sarcastic when people would be like, talking about God. And I'd be like, okay, like I'm not a sheep, whatever. And then the night that I got sick, I was diagnosed and I was at the hospital. My next door neighbor, talk about God things. My next door neighbor and her husband, he's a brain surgeon and she's a nurse who is taking care of brains, surgeon people, brain people.
Mhm.
And so she's at the hospital with me. So they're my next door neighbors and they're helping us. But she's at
Wow.
the hospital and she's hugging me. And I prayed to God and I really didn't even know how to do it because I told you I had not. And I basically said, God, please let me live, for my kid. I promise I will make all the changes in my life and that need to be had. I will prioritize my family more than anything. And I was just crying and she's crying and it was quite a moment. And then something really, really otherworldly happened. All of a sudden, I'm crying, and I see a reorganization of my entire life. I just see it. And the first thing is God, and then I see me, and then below that, I see my family. But here's the crazy thing. I look below that, there's nothing else there. There's not all my accolades as a lawyer and all the achievements that I made and all the public speaking I did there. None of that mattered. When I was at my worst, I reached out to God and God showed me the path that I had missed. I had been missed, running my life with. And that was a very big opening moment. And then, so I was open, right? So I'm,
Oh my
I'm
God.
in, I'm opening. And then I
Wow.
started getting messages from God, like it'd be about midnight, maybe sometimes like that, or when I'm going to sleep, like really relaxed. And then I started getting messages. And, one of them was, you are loved and you are love. And they would say all kinds of things. It's not like,
Mhm.
what car should you buy? It was never like that. It was always high end. And so I started writing all of the messages that I was getting and angels were coming through and I have it all written down and it was so beautiful. And I believe this is a major part of my healing, honestly,
Mhm.
because I started to understand there is a something so much bigger than just this disease and these things that I'm not going to be able to do anymore. And that was such a blessing. I just wish more people could 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 use that when things are tough to really go into that if they don't have it. Here's the flip side. Some people are so confident in their spirit about loving God, they ignore the body and spirit, and the body and the mind aspect of it. And they're just like, God will help me. God will help me. I'm like, yeah, but God also wants you to do things. You have you have your own powers within yourself here on this earth. But really, when people say, what do you think the best part of this journey? One, learning perspective, you know, and the second one is finding God. Big, big gift for me.
Oh my goodness. I just love this because you know what? You were open and the fact that you were just crying out. And I think when people just get down their guard and when it comes down to it, that's all that's important is
Right.
you and God and your family. And you're right, the accolades, that's not why we're here. He's,
But you start to define yourself by what you do. Even if we're talking to a lot of moms, even if you say, I'm a mom, I'm a mom. We know you're not. You are. That is an activity that you're engaged. You're the mother of this child and children, but you are you.
Mhm.
And that was a very important part to learn for myself. You are loved so deeply, just as you are. And learning this part of loving yourself, truly loving yourself. It's not like you're, an egomaniac. It's actually another level of deeply loving you. You do something stupid, you stab something, you spend too much on something. You are so still deeply loved. And that's one of the messages that they shared to me during this very intense period of time of healing. They said, there's nothing you can do. There's like a burning thing going in your stomach.
Mhm.
And that's us. And we're here with you. And we are always here with you. The only thing that you need to do is open the door, basically, and realize that we're here. That's how close we are to you. And of course, for me, I'm crying, I'm pouring because
Right.
this is so brand new to me, but so true.
Mhm.
And so I'm very, very grateful. 14 years and I'm still in awe of what God does.
Oh, you have to be. So when you go and do your CAT scan, is there nothing there?
Nothing there.
Oh my goodness.
Nothing. Nothing.
Wow. Could they see
Yeah.
it shrinking when you were doing CAT scans? Were they looking at it like, we're like, oh, the chemo's doing a great job, or were they doing that?
Yeah, yes, they would say so. They did the surgery and then they did radiation and then chemo. And yes, and it was stable. They kept saying stable. But like with this disease, they don't say you're cured. They will never give it to me. They say you're in remission, which is, I find that so obnoxious.
Mm.
It means to say, well, when it comes back, I'm like, why would it possibly? I have learned the lesson. Right.
Right.
I think most illnesses, there is a causation,
Mhm.
and nobody ever talks about that. Like, what were you doing? Inspect yourself. Be your own scientist. What were you doing in the last 3 years before this happened? I'm going to throw this one in. Breast cancer, there are groups. So breast cancer people, most of those women often they're givers and they never give back, right? People like, oh, I'll bring it. No, 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 I'll get it. I'll get it. And there's an energetic part of them that would really like to allow that balance to come back in, let people help them.
Mhm.
And so brain cancer people, most of them are type A personalities
Mhm.
and in management roles, but sensitive souls. I mean, I've met so many of them. So what are we doing? Ask ourselves, how did I get in this situation? Yes, be scared. I understand how all that, but then calm down and ask, what was I doing? And how can I change what I'm doing now? Because obviously that was not working for me. And
Right.
for me, I was a stress case, right? A stress
Mhm.
case for like 5 years. Well, something's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
My sister, who's a nurse, says stress is always one of the biggest leaders for cancer. If people are
Yes.
really stressful, you got to pluck that out because a lot of people who get cancer, when they ask their stress level, it's off the charts. So there's a tendency, let's be chill. Let's be, all of these are things we can implement. Now, we only have a couple minutes left. Really quickly, when you started making these changes, did you just bring your family along and you just started eating differently as a family and they all embraced it as well?
Yes, that was very good. My kids were young, like I said, so I did have a little area of junky stuff for kids, so they didn't have to get crazy. But literally, my husband, who was a football player in high school or college, everybody joined in and they were eating my food. And now my girls are 20 and 23. How blessed am I? Actually 21. She just her birthday was this weekend. But so what a blessing for me, right? To know that. But the girls are completely online. So it's not even a question. It's wonderful.
Oh my goodness. Okay. How do we find you? Tell us about the book. I'll have all this in the show notes, but tell us really quickly how everyone can find you.
So the book is called The Case for Hope, and it's by Jennifer Laguza Dickinson, and you can get that on Amazon, really anywhere. And also you can go to my website, which is jenniferdickinson.com. You can go to my website and you can buy my book there also, and you can see all my podcasts or written stuff that I've written. You can get more information about my story, but those are probably the best place. Also in Instagram, what am I? Instagram, I'm Jennifer L. Dickinson. So yes.
I think we
Facebook.
connected that way too. Oh my goodness. This has been an amazing podcast. I am so thankful to have you on because right now, instead of going out for dinner tonight, I'm going to go to the grocery store and get some lean chicken. And, because it's the little things. And we have personally, our family has been trying to really be healthier as well to stop the inflammation and try to do the things because, we've just it's been revealed to us and things we have to make. And I think it's just being conscientious of those changes. And I love the mind, body, and spirit. Oh my goodness. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on today. You have been such a blessing.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, mamas, thank you so much for joining in. I know you are super busy doing all the things that can consume your day, but you took a couple of minutes to learn how God wants to build you up in your faith, family, and life. And He wants to applaud you for this. Please subscribe and review my show. This helps other moms tune in as well. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram at Front Parking Spot, on Facebook at Front Parking Spot Mom Community, or my website at jenniferbosma.com. Have an Ephesians 3:20 type of day, mamas, and be encouraged as you go for the front parking spot in your life today. God bless.